In the shadows of a nation that once fought for freedom from oppression, a darker fury has risen, one that turns neighbor against neighbor, citizen against fellow African. This is the untold story of South Africa's post-apartheid xenophobic violence, the brutal, repeated sacking of immigrants from other countries through beatings, burnings, lootings, and forced expulsions. Welcome to Fury Diaries, where we expose the raw, unfiltered history that textbooks won't touch. Today, we dive deep into how South Africa, the Rainbow Nation, has repeatedly erupted in waves of hatred against Black Africans from Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Nigeria, Somalia, Malawi, Ghana, and beyond. These are not isolated incidents. This is a pattern spanning 3 decades, fueled by poverty, unemployment, crime, and political rhetoric, but carried out with shocking violence that has left hundreds dead, thousands displaced, and entire communities shattered. Let's go back to the very beginning of the so-called New South Africa. Apartheid officially ended in 1994. Nelson Mandela walked free. The world celebrated. But almost immediately, the cracks appeared. In December 1994 and January 1995, right in Alexandra Township outside Johannesburg, armed youth gangs launched what they called a cleanup campaign. They targeted undocumented migrants, mostly from Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and Malawi. Homes were destroyed, property looted, and the foreigners were marched at gunpoint to the local police station. The demand was simple and savage: deport them now, or we'll do it ourselves. This was just months after democracy. No one called it xenophobia yet, but the fury was already burning. By 1998, the violence escalated on the trains. Groups returning from anti-foreigner rallies in Johannesburg grabbed Senegalese and Mozambican migrants and hurled them from moving trains, killing several. The excuse? Foreigners were stealing jobs, spreading AIDS, committing crimes. In August 2000, 7 foreigners, Nigerians, Kenyans, Angolans, were stabbed and shot dead in just 5 weeks on the Cape Flats near Cape Town. The message was clear. Outsiders were not welcome in the new South Africa. But nothing prepared the world for the explosion of 2008. In May of that year, hell broke loose in Alexandra Township. A rumor spread like wildfire. Foreigners were taking jobs and houses from locals. Mobs armed with machetes, sticks, and petrol surged through the streets. They hunted anyone who looked foreign. Zimbabweans fleeing Mugabe's chaos, Mozambicans escaping poverty, Somalis running small shops. The attacks spread like a virus across Gauteng, Durban, Mpumalanga, 135 locations in total. Over 3 brutal weeks, at least 62 people were murdered. Hundreds more were beaten, raped, and injured. More than 100,000 foreigners were displaced, fleeing with nothing but the clothes on their backs. One image from that wave still haunts the world. On May 11th in Diepsloot, a Mozambican man named Ernesto Alfabeto Namuave was dragged into the street. The mob poured petrol on him, set him on fire, and laughed as he burned alive, necklaced in the old apartheid style of vigilante justice. Crowds watched, some filming on phones. This wasn't random crime. This was organized fury. Shops owned by Somalis were looted and torched. In the Eastern Cape earlier that year, 2 Somali shopkeepers had already been gunned down in cold blood. The government finally deployed the army, but the damage was done. Foreign embassies scrambled. The world watched in horror as the Rainbow Nation turned blood red. The fury didn't stop. It simmered, then boiled over again in 2015. In Durban and Johannesburg, attacks reignited with deadly precision. This time, a speech by Zulu King Goodwill Zwelithini lit the fuse. He told foreigners to go back to your countries because they were taking opportunities from locals. Within days, mobs hacked people to death with machetes. At least 7 were killed, thousands displaced. Zimbabweans, Nigerians, Malawians, anyone with a foreign accent or shop became targets. Governments from Malawi to Nigeria began airlifting their citizens home in panic. South African President Jacob Zuma condemned it, but the streets told a different story. Foreign-owned businesses were smashed. Families slept in churches and police stations, terrified to go home. Fast forward to September 2019. Johannesburg and Pretoria exploded once more. This wave zeroed in on Nigerians. Shops looted, burned. At least 12 dead. The violence spilled into diplomatic crisis. Nigeria recalled its ambassador, summoned South Africa's envoy, and threatened retaliation. Nigerians were accused of drug dealing and crime, but the real trigger was the same old rage. They're taking our jobs, our women, our space. Videos of burning buildings and fleeing migrants flooded social media. The pattern was now undeniable. Every few years, the same fury, the same excuses, the same bodies in the streets. By the 2020s, the violence didn't need a spark anymore. It had organizers. In 2021, a new force rose in Soweto. Operation Dudula, pushback in Zulu. Started as a vigilante movement, it quickly became a political party. Led by figures like Dudula, they marched through townships with sticks, chanting against illegal migrants. They raided foreign-owned businesses, accused Nigerians and Zimbabweans of drug trafficking and human smuggling, and blocked migrants from clinics and schools. Clean Soweto campaigns evicted families from hijacked buildings. They expanded to Durban, the Western Cape, even patrolled the Beitbridge border with Zimbabwe in 2024, some armed, stopping trucks, demanding papers. Human rights groups called it outright vigilantism, but support grew among frustrated locals facing 40% plus unemployment. The fury kept building. Through 2024 and into 2025, sporadic attacks continued, shops looted, foreigners beaten in townships. Then came 2026. In April and May, new waves hit hard. Vigilante groups like March and March organized protests in Pretoria, Johannesburg, and Durban. Anti-immigrant demonstrations turned violent. In the Eastern Cape and Estcourt in KwaZulu-Natal, foreign shops, especially Ghanaian and Nigerian, were targeted and looted. Mobs set deadlines. June 30th for all foreign Africans to leave. Videos of confrontations went viral. 2 Nigerians were killed in fresh attacks. Police response was slow, criticized as insufficient. The international backlash was immediate and humiliating. Ghana airlifted nearly 300 of its citizens, women, children, families, on chartered flights from Johannesburg to Accra in late May 2026. Nigeria followed, preparing evacuations for over 100 of its nationals. Both countries summoned South African diplomats. The African Union got involved. Human Rights Watch documented vigilante attacks with little police intervention. Over the decades since 1994, groups like Xenowatch have recorded hundreds of incidents. At least 588 deaths by 2021, over 5,300 shops looted, and more than 127,000 people displaced. The numbers keep climbing. Why does this keep happening in a country that defeated apartheid? The roots run deep. High unemployment, service delivery protests, crime blamed on outsiders, politicians who stoke the fire for votes, migrants from war-torn or collapsing economies next door, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, fill the gaps in spaza shops and farms. They work hard, send money home, but become scapegoats when times get tough. South Africans who fought for freedom now turn that same anger inward, against fellow Africans who crossed borders seeking the same dream. This isn't ancient history. This is happening right now, in 2026. Operation Dudula still marches. New groups rise. Foreigners still live in fear. The government promises crackdowns on illegal immigration, but the streets deliver their own justice. Violent, unforgiving, and repeated. South Africa's story is one of triumph over white minority rule, but also a warning. Freedom from one oppressor doesn't guarantee freedom from hatred within. The fury that once united against apartheid now divides black against black. Will it stop? Or will another wave come, another burning, another airlift? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Which wave shocked you most? The 2008 necklacing? The 2015 King's speech? Or the 2026 evacuation still unfolding? Should South Africa do more to integrate migrants, or is the anger justified? Hit like if you want more deep dives into Africa's forgotten furies. Subscribe for the next episode, because history isn't over. The diary continues. This is Fury Diaries. Stay furious. Peace.